And also, Mom looked at Dad as if seeking support. We realized we were unfair to you, dear. You've done so much for all of us, and we took it for granted. Especially me, Jessica admitted reluctantly. You were right about the kids. It's our responsibility, not yours. I stood, stunned by this unexpected turn. Had my outburst really changed something? Or was this some clever trick? Thank you, I said cautiously. But I've made a decision too. Everyone froze, staring at me. I'm moving out. The words came out confidently, although I was trembling inside. Found a roommate. I need to start living my own life. But dear, Mom looked genuinely upset. Now that Jessica is leaving, you'll have your big room back. Everything will return to normal. I shook my head. No, Mom. Nothing will ever be the same. I've grown up. I need space. My own space. But the bills... Dad started. I'll still help, I interrupted. I'll transfer money every month, but I'll live separately. They exchanged glances, and I saw something new in their eyes. Understanding? Respect? I wasn't sure, but it was definitely something I had never noticed before. All right, Dad finally said. If that's truly what you want. It's what I need, I replied firmly. 6 months have passed. I'm sitting in my small but cozy apartment, sharing it with Mark. He turned out to be an ideal roommate, quiet and tidy. On the table before me is my laptop with an open page of online courses in financial management. After getting a promotion at work, I decided to continue my education. The phone rings, and the screen shows Mom. Now, we talk almost every day, but it's different. My parents have finally started to see me as an adult, not just their youngest daughter who would always be in the background. Hi, Mom, I answer with a smile. Emily, dear, how are you? How are your courses? She genuinely cares about my life, and it still feels a bit strange. Everything's great. How about you? Your father and I are going to visit Jessica this weekend. Do you want to come? The kids miss Aunt Emily. I smile. Now, I visit my nephews once a month. By choice, not obligation. And oddly enough, I really enjoy spending time with them. Not this weekend, I reply. I have a date. Oh! Mom sounds surprised but delighted. With that young man from your office. Ryan? Yes, that's him. I feel my cheeks warm. We're going to the theater, then out to dinner. How wonderful! You must tell me all about it afterwards. We chat for a few more minutes, and I hang up feeling lighthearted. My life has finally become my own. I still love my family, but now we have healthy boundaries. I am no longer a shadow, a free babysitter, or an ATM. I am Emily. I'm 23 years old, and I am finally living my life. Sometimes you need the courage to say no, even to the people closest to you, to finally learn how to say yes to yourself. And that's the most important lesson I've ever learned. He stood in the middle of my apartment, hands in pockets, eyes darting everywhere but me. Natasha, I'm sorry. His voice barely audible. The kind you use when you're too cowardly to say what's needed. It's Ashley. She's different. Exciting. A sharp, stinging pain pierced my chest, but I refused to cry. Not in front of him. I looked at the man who once drew promises on my palm, who laughed with me under streetlights, who made me believe I was good enough. You're choosing her? My voice cracked, barely audible. He swallowed hard and nodded, and then I saw a flicker of a guilt in his eyes. But not enough. Never enough to stay. Then just like that, he turned and left. The door clicked shut behind him. The rain swallowed his footsteps. I sat there, staring at the space he had just occupied. My apartment suddenly felt too big, too empty, too quiet. The rain continued to tap against the window. Tap, tap, tap. In sync with the slow, painful breaking of my heart. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make it stop. But I just sat there, hands shaking, breath shallow. And then I thought of Ashley, her smirk, how she had stolen him like he was a prize she won just to prove she could. And I thought of Mom and Dad, how they let her. I drove to my parents' house that night, rain streaming down my windshield in blurred rivers, wipers scraping glass. I barely remembered the drive. I remembered only the anger in my veins, the desperate hope that this time they would care. I burst through the front door, soaking wet, my chest heaving heavily. "Jason left me for Ashley," I said, my voice hoarse and trembling, desperately hoping that someone, anyone would react. Mom frowned, but not at Ashley, at me. "Natasha, Ashley deserves to be happy. Jason made his choice. You'll find someone else." That's when I knew I had to leave. The house was quiet except for the steady rhythm of rain on the roof. I felt like a thief, slipping away from a life that was never truly mine. I left a note on the kitchen table, the ink smudged where my hand had trembled. "I'm gone. Don't call." The drive into the city was a blur of headlights cutting through darkness, rain streaming down the windshield as if the world was melting behind me. My new apartment was small, walls thin enough to hear neighbors' arguments, floor groaning under every step, but it was mine. I found a job at a diner, balancing plates with shaking hands, my apron forever stained with spilled coffee. The smell of grease clung to my clothes, and customers were impatient, their tips barely enough to make ends meet, but none of it mattered. I was free. I started therapy with Laura. My therapist had a voice like a lullaby, software, steady, safe. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could exhale. "Natasha," she said once, her tone gentle but firm, "you're not invisible. You're just finally learning to see yourself." I wanted to believe her. At first I didn't, but I kept coming back. We talked about Mom, about Dad, about Ashley, about the prison I had lived in for so long that I didn't even realize the door had always been unlocked. "You're allowed to be angry," Laura told me, her gaze warm, unwavering. "You're allowed to feel," and I did feel. I felt everything, rage, grief, loss, but also something new, something that felt like hope. One evening I picked up my camera again. The lens was dusty, the grip unfamiliar in my hands, but its weight was comforting. I moved to the window, pointed it at the horizon, jagged and bright, city lights blurred by rain. Click. It felt right. I started taking more photos. Cracks in sidewalks, stray cats prowling alleys, the neon glow of the diner sign where I spent my days. Each shot felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. That's when I met Michael. He walked into the diner on a rainy evening with a camera around his neck and kind eyes. He ordered black coffee and asked permission to photograph the interior for his project about the city's nightlife. "You have amazing lighting in here," he said, looking at the neon lights reflecting in the wet windows. Such contrast of shadows and light. I nodded, suddenly interested. "I take photos too," I admitted, feeling excited about talking to a stranger for the first time in a long while. Michael smiled, and his smile was genuine, not like Jason's, not like Ashley's rehearsed smile. "Will you show me your work?" That's how a new chapter of my life began. Michael taught me to see beauty in imperfection, to find art in the ordinary. We spent hours wandering the city with our cameras, capturing moments most people simply walked past. Gradually, my photography gallery grew, as did my confidence. I started exhibiting my work in small cafes, then in local galleries. People would stop, look, ask about the stories behind each photo, and then my father died. Suddenly, from a heart attack. And there I was at his funeral, watching Ashley, now married to Jason, continue to play the role of the perfect daughter. But something had changed. I no longer felt invisible. Michael stood beside me, his presence an anchor in a stormy sea of emotions. When Ashley opened her mouth to say something cutting, I just smiled. Her words could no longer hurt me. "You know," I said to her quietly, "I should thank you. If it weren't for you, I would never have found my true self." Ashley froze, her perfect mask cracking. And I turned to Michael and walked out of the church, leaving behind my old life and the pain it brought. Now, years later, my photography studio is thriving. My work is exhibited in major galleries. But most importantly, I finally see myself as I am. Not as Ashley's shadow, not as invisible, but as a woman who found her own light. And those 26 missed calls from Mom? I never called back. Sometimes the best way to heal wounds is to let them heal on their own without constantly reopening the past. Michael understands this better than anyone. Every evening, when we review the day's photographs, he says, "You create beauty from pain, light from shadow." And I know he's right, because sometimes you need to lose everything to find yourself. And sometimes the darkest moments become the best frames in the story of our lives. Did you like the story? Write your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next interesting story. See you tomorrow.